Clara had always dreamed of a quiet life on the frontier, filled with love and laughter. But fate had other plans. After losing her husband to an illness that swept through their small farming community, she found herself alone, facing a cruel world without help. When an oil tycoon took over the land he once promised to share, Clara became ensnared in his merciless grasp. Her days were long and exhausting. The sun beat down relentlessly on the sprawling oil fields, casting shimmering heat waves that danced like spirits, taunting her every move. As Clara stirred boiling pots and tended to smoky fires, the nauseating scent of crude oil filled her nostrils, turning her stomach into knots. Each day's toil seemed endless, and her spirit began to fade with each painful gust of wind that brought whispers of freedom from the outside world, only to leave her feeling trapped in her dismal reality. She toiled not just for herself but for the unyielding demands of the tycoon who had purchased her in the dark of the night like a piece of livestock. The men around her showed no kindness. Instead, they took pleasure in mocking her misfortune and belittling her spirit. Though she fought to keep hope alive within her heart, whispers filled with cruelty chipped away at her resolve daily. Every evening, as she lay down on a thin bedroll in the dark shack where she slept, Clara reflected on the life she once had as a free woman. Her memories rushed back like ghosts from another time: picnics under oak trees, soft laughter shared with friends, and warm evenings spent by the fire telling stories and dreaming of adventures yet to come. Now those dreams felt far away, buried under layers of oil-stained despair. Then came the day that shifted everything. The shadow of Chief Matoh loomed over Clara's world like a protective sun emerging from behind dark clouds. Known as a fierce warrior and respected leader of the Comanche tribe, he saw more than simply a frail woman enslaved in the fields. He recognized her spirit struggling against chains unseen. When he arrived at the oil camp to negotiate for resources, Clara watched him from afar. His presence radiated strength and determination. Yet even then she remained uncertain as to how his path could intertwine with hers, or if it would eventually lead to liberation or continued sorrow. But Chief Matoh possessed a heart full of honor. With deep-seated compassion, he chose to intervene not only for justice but also for love's promise. Little did Clara know this was just the beginning of a new chapter filled with hope and courage. The oil tycoon who had ensnared Clara in his cruel grip was a man of tremendous wealth and little conscience. Known as Mr. Hawthorne, he towered over his workers with a combination of arrogance and disdain, his presence as heavy as the machinery that belched smoke across the fields. He wore fine suits that were out of place among the dirt and grime of the oil fields, a stark reminder that while he profited from their labor, he cared little for the lives being sacrificed to fuel his empire. Hawthorne's reputation for ruthlessness was well known. He operated with a mindset that saw people as mere resources, expendable and replaceable. To him, Clara was no more than an extra hand, a tool to keep the fires burning and the meals cooking for the men who worked tirelessly digging through the earth for black gold. With every order barked out in a voice like thunder, Clara could feel her dignity slip away, crushed under the weight of his demands. She recalled the first time she met him, a chance encounter filled with dread. His dark eyes scanned her as if she were an object rather than a person, and his smirk sent chills down her spine. He had made it clear from the start that kindness would be absent in this new life. Instead, fear was his currency. If anyone dared to step out of line or show weakness, Hawthorne would swiftly ensure they were punished, often making examples of those who displeased him. Clara's days blurred together in a haze of tireless labor. From dawn until dusk, she cooked in a makeshift kitchen that was little more than a shack with smoke-stained walls and no windows to let in fresh air. The heat from the fire felt suffocating, and the stench of oil seeped into every corner of her existence. She chopped vegetables and stirred large pots, always careful not to let any food go to waste. Hawthorne expected perfection and would not hesitate to reprimand her if a mistake slipped through. Her body ached as she moved from one task to another. Her hands blistered from heat and hard work. Each meal prepared felt like another chain added to her already heavy burden. The men who ate at her table were indifferent to her suffering. They consumed their food without thought, often laughing at Clara's misfortunes as if they were merely entertaining tales rather than the harsh reality she lived. As day turned into night, Clara would collapse onto her bedroll, surrounded by shadows deeper than any pit dug into the earth. She fought against despair but often felt it creeping closer with each passing hour. Mr. Hawthorne's cruelty drained her spirit little by little until all that remained was a flicker of hope that somewhere beyond those oil-slicked fields lay freedom waiting for her, a hope that seemed more distant with every drop of crude that spilled from the earth. As Clara endured the grueling reality of her life, a different kind of strength was stirring miles away. Chief Matoh of the Comanche tribe was a figure of respect, known not just for his fierce bravery in battle but also for his deep commitment to justice and fairness. He carried himself with an air of dignity, his posture straight and proud as he rode through the plains on his trusty stallion. The shimmering sun highlighted the intricate patterns of his war paint, symbols of his heritage that told stories of valor and wisdom. Matoh was beloved by his people. He listened to their concerns with patience and understanding, valuing their voices as if every word were precious gems. Families sought him out not only when they faced dangers from rival tribes but also in times of happiness or sadness. Raised by elders who instilled in him a reverence for life, he learned that true leadership came not from tyranny but through compassion and unity. His reputation extended beyond tribal boundaries. Even settlers spoke about the Comanche chief with a mixture of fear and admiration. They had seen him ride into skirmishes with unwavering courage, leading his warriors with strategies as sharp as arrows, yet he sought peace whenever possible. Unlike many leaders, he believed in finding common ground rather than allowing conflicts to fester. When Matoh heard whispers about the oppressed settler widow cooking under the cruel hand of Mr. Hawthorne, his heart stirred with purpose. To him, Clara represented more than just one woman enslaved by an oil tycoon. She embodied the struggles faced by many in these hard times. He felt an instinctual calling to help her, motivated by both deep empathy and a desire to defy injustice wherever it appeared. On the day he set out for the oil fields where Clara was held captive, Matoh gathered his thoughts while preparing for this pivotal journey. He adorned himself in traditional attire that honored both his ancestors and the task ahead, the vibrant colors symbolizing hope, resilience, and a connection to nature itself. As he rode across the rugged terrain, each hoofbeat echoed with determination. Upon arriving at the camp, Matoh's commanding presence drew immediate attention from both workers and guards alike. Disregarding their hostile glances, he approached with calm authority amidst tension thick enough to slice through with a knife. In every interaction, he exuded confidence, a warrior who had faced death yet remained resolute for those who could not fight for themselves. Clara caught a glimpse of this formidable man as he stood tall against adversity. Who was this chief who dared challenge the very forces keeping her shackled? Hope surged within her as she witnessed Matoh's bravery unfold before her eyes, a spark igniting in her heart that perhaps freedom was closer than she dared to imagine. Chief Matoh stood at the edge of the oil camp, his heart pounding with a mix of determination and urgency. He understood the weight of what he was about to do. Negotiating for Clara's freedom was not just an act of kindness. It was a profound statement against oppression. In his culture, freeing someone from bondage symbolized the highest respect for human dignity and a commitment to justice, a principle that resonated deeply within him. Gathering his thoughts, Matoh recalled the stories passed down through generations, tales of warriors who fought not only for land but also for the rights of individuals. He pictured Clara's face as she labored under the cruel hand of Mr. Hawthorne, her spirit dimming with every passing day. The thought fueled his resolve. He would not let another soul suffer while he had the power to intervene. As he approached the camp, Matoh noticed the dismissive looks from some workers and the tense whispers among the guards. They recognized him instantly and felt an underlying fear mixed with respect. This was a man who could rally warriors and negotiate peace, and they knew that he did not come lightly. With each step, Matoh's presence commanded attention, urging those around him to consider the significance of their choices. When he reached Mr. Hawthorne's makeshift office, a large tent marked by symbols of wealth and greed, Matoh took a moment to compose himself. He knew that this encounter would define not only Clara's future but also how both communities viewed one another going forward. As he stepped into the tent, the air thickened with tension. Mr. Hawthorne, Matoh began, his voice steady yet firm, I have come to negotiate for the release of Clara. His words hung in the air like a challenge. Hawthorne regarded him with a mix of surprise and disdain. And why would I part with a valuable worker? She is worth more than you might imagine. Unfazed by Hawthorne's arrogance, Matoh replied with unwavering conviction. Every life has value beyond labor. Clara is a woman deserving of dignity and freedom. He paused before presenting an offer, a trade that held both cultural significance and personal sacrifice, 20 ponies from his herd. These ponies were more than mere animals. They represented wealth, strength, and community ties within his tribe. By offering them, Matoh showcased his willingness to prioritize human life over material possessions, an act that would resonate deeply within both their cultures. As Hawthorne considered the proposal, Matoh remained resolute. This negotiation was more than just business. It was an opportunity to reshape perceptions between settlers and native peoples, a chance to build bridges instead of walls. In that moment, Clara's fate hung in the balance as two worlds collided in conflict yet also bore hope for understanding and change. Chief Matoh stood firm, ready to fight for what was right. If successful, freeing Clara could spark a new beginning for both tribes, a powerful reminder that compassion could indeed rewrite destiny. The air in Mr. Hawthorne's tent crackled with tension as Chief Matoh stood firmly, his eyes locked on the oil tycoon. Clara's fate felt like a heavy stone resting on his heart, and he knew this moment would determine not only her future but also the potential for reconciliation between their worlds. 20 ponies, Matoh declared, his voice steady and resolute. The offer hung in the air, laden with significance. To Mr. Hawthorne, the wealth of those ponies was a tempting prize, yet the stakes were far deeper than mere currency. Clara's life rested on this exchange, and with it came the burden of cultural honor and responsibility. Hawthorne raised an eyebrow, feigning disbelief as he leaned back in his chair, a smirk curling at the corners of his mouth. You think I'll part with a valuable worker for a few horses? You must be joking. His disdain sliced through the air like a knife, showing no respect for Clara's suffering. But Matoh remained unfazed. Each pony stood as a symbol of strength, unity, and sacrifice within his tribe. This was not just about wealth, it was about dignity, a concept Hawthorne seemed to have long forgotten. Clara is worth more than labor. She deserves freedom, just as every person does. You may view her as a tool for profit, but I see her as a life that must be reclaimed. The tension in the tent thickened as Hawthorne's expression shifted from amusement to annoyance. He leaned forward, challenging Matoh with a glare that could shatter glass. Why risk your reputation for her? This isn't about honor, it's business. Matoh understood Hawthorne's mindset. He had spent years fostering an identity rooted in domination. Yet it was precisely that mentality that he aimed to challenge. This is about humanity, Matoh replied coolly. Each life is priceless. How can you measure Clara's worth solely in labor? By freeing her, you have the chance to do something noble. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the distant sounds of machinery grinding out crude oil, a sound that represented the greed consuming the land and its people. Matoh stood tall against the backdrop of that noise, embodying a force of change in stark contrast to Hawthorne's avarice. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of scrutiny, Hawthorne spoke again, weighing his options. The muscles in Matoh's shoulders tensed as he awaited his response. This moment could alter everything, not just Clara's destiny but also how their communities would relate to one another moving forward. Fine, Hawthorne relented after an agonizing pause, his tone laced with irritation. 20 ponies for one woman. It seems absurd. But there was no denying that beneath his facade lay a recognition of Matoh's influence, an acknowledgement that this one act could set forth ripples of change. As Matoh turned to leave the tent, determination coursing through him, he felt the weight of history resting on his shoulders. With Clara's freedom secured through cultural respect and compassion, they could pave the way for a new understanding, a testament that even in darkness, light could emerge when one stood firm against oppression. As Clara emerged from the shadowy confines of the oil camp, her heart raced like a wild stallion. The air outside felt fresher, filled with the sense of earth and wildflowers, and for the first time in a long while, she drew in a deep breath that seemed to cleanse her very soul. She blinked against the sunlight, which felt almost foreign after so many days spent in the dimness of fear and despair. Clara's mind struggled to comprehend the enormity of what had just happened. Chief Matoh had paid for her freedom with 20 ponies, each one a symbol of strength and resilience. The reality of her liberation washed over her like a wave, both exhilarating and terrifying. She had been trapped for so long that it felt surreal to think she was finally free. Her heart swelled with emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years, hope, joy, and an overwhelming sense of gratitude. As she took tentative steps away from the camp, Clara felt a fire ignite within her, a flicker of the spirit that had once burned brightly before grief and hardship dulled it. The images of her past began to flood back, laughter shared with friends, moments spent under starlit skies, and dreams spun of love and adventure. Each memory fueled her newfound desire to reclaim her life. In that moment of awakening, Clara glanced back at the oil camp. It loomed large and oppressive behind her, but she didn't feel anger. Instead, she felt a sense of determination to rise above it all. The chains that had once bound her were gone, both physical and emotional, and she realized that liberation wasn't just about escaping from captivity, it was also about rediscovering who she was meant to be. Chief Matoh approached her steadily, his presence strong yet gentle. When their eyes met, he offered a reassuring nod that seemed to say he understood her struggle without needing words. Clara felt seen for the first time in ages, not as a laborer or an object but as a woman deserving of respect and dignity. "Thank you," Clara whispered, tears brimming in her eyes as relief mingled with joy. Matoh smiled softly in response. "You are free now." With those words echoing in her heart, Clara took another deep breath, the kind that filled not just her lungs but every corner of her being with newfound strength. She understood that this moment was a turning point. It was not just an end but also a beginning filled with possibilities. As they moved forward together into the unknown future, Clara realized she could redefine herself and build new dreams on the ashes of despair. No longer would she accept being defined by others' cruelty. Instead, she would embrace freedom as a canvas upon which to paint her own life's story, a tale woven with resilience and hope. With every step away from darkness toward light, Clara reclaimed not only her freedom but also the fierce spirit within that refused to be extinguished. Today marked not only an escape but also a bold declaration that she would shape her destiny from this day forward, a testament to the strength born from adversity and the boundless horizons awaiting those courageous enough to seek them out. The news of Clara and Chief Matoh's union spread through the oil camp and surrounding settlements like fire through dry grass. Whispers turned into echoes, rippling through communities that had always existed on the fragile edge of tension between settlers and native peoples. The scandal seemed to ignite with as much passion as the oil that fueled Hawthorne's empire, bringing forth a wave of emotions, some supportive, others outrageously opposed. The settlers, many of whom had long ago drawn lines of division, couldn't comprehend a bond between a white widow and a Comanche chief. In their eyes, this relationship represented a breach of societal norms and an affront to their traditions. Safety and tradition had governed their lives for generations, and now Clara's choice threatened to upend everything they held dear. How could she betray her own kind, was a frequent refrain among those who'd once considered Clara a neighbor. Closed doors echoed whispers filled with prejudice that shaped the discussions in bars and homes alike. On the other side, Matoh faced disapproval from some within his own tribe. Tattoos of his ancestors told stories of valor, but they also served as reminders of past betrayals by settlers. Is it not folly to tie yourself to one who has suffered at the hands of our enemies? Some questioned. They feared that his love for Clara might soften him to outsiders, eroding the cultural strength that defined their identity. Yet amid the scandal, there were those who recognized the potential for change. Some brave souls from both sides began talking about peace, a shared future that didn't rely on deep-seated prejudices or old grudges. Clara's relationship with Matoh became a focal point, igniting conversations between settlers and Comanche tribes that had previously been non-existent. In the quiet moments after the dust settled from the initial reactions, Clara found herself reflecting on what had brought her here. She slowly understood that her union with Matoh represented more than love. It was a powerful message against centuries-old biases. They were both walking tests of courage, the courage to love despite fear, to embrace diversity when faced with rejection. Walking hand in hand with Matoh through the fields that had once felt like prisons, Clara began to embrace her role not just as a wife but as a bridge between cultures. She sought ways to break down barriers her own community had built. As whispers morphed into active dialogues in marketplaces and public gatherings, Clara saw glimmers of hope blooming through shared stories and open hearts. Together, they faced societal views steeped in prejudice, determined not to let anger dampen their spirits. Clara knew that true change wouldn't happen overnight. It took relentless resolve, strength, and love, but they were prepared to illuminate a path for others to follow, confident that even in times of scandal and injustice, unity could rise from adversity. As they stood together beneath the vast sky, illuminated by the warm glow of possibility instead of shadows of hatred, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of purpose to reshape their story into one woven with understanding, acceptance, and newfound beginnings. Clara and Chief Matoh's marriage blossomed into a powerful symbol of love that transcended boundaries, weaving together threads of acceptance and cultural blending in a world often defined by harshness and division. Their union stood in stark contrast to the oppressive environment of the oil fields where greed and exploitation dictated the lives of many. As they settled into their new life together, the warmth of their love began to spread through the communities around them, igniting conversations about unity and respect. In the early days of their marriage, Clara often found herself reflecting on how different life was now compared to her time in captivity. Gone were the days of laboring under the relentless sun, burdened by the expectations of Mr. Hawthorne and the ridicule from those who saw her as less than human. Instead, she and Matoh embraced a life filled with mutual respect and shared dreams, where each day offered opportunities for healing. Their home became a gathering place for those willing to bridge divides and celebrate their differences. As settlers and Comanche people began to interact more frequently at Clara and Matoh's home, they witnessed firsthand the beauty of cultural blending. Meals shared between the two communities showcased a delightful fusion of flavors. Traditional Comanche dishes mingled with settler favorites, creating a feast that nourished not only bodies but also relationships. Laughter mingled with stories of old, fostering an understanding that had long been absent. However, not everyone embraced this change. Some remained entrenched in their prejudices, unable to see past old grievances. Yet Clara and Matoh's love persisted in the face of adversity, reminding everyone around them that acceptance is born from understanding rather than fear. Each act of kindness, a shared meal, a smile exchanged, eroded barriers that had previously seemed insurmountable. In public gatherings, Clara often found herself standing beside Matoh, his hand enveloping hers as they faced skeptical glances and whispered judgments. Yet with every challenge they encountered, they grew more resolute in their commitment to one another. Their marriage became a beacon, lighting the way for those willing to consider a future united rather than divided by past hurts. One evening, under a sky painted with stars, Clara gazed at Matoh as he spoke passionately about visions for peace between their peoples. She felt her heart swell with pride, not just for him but for what they represented together. They were living proof that love could conquer fear, that acceptance could flourish even in the most unlikely circumstances. As Clara and Matoh embraced their roles as catalysts for change, they inspired others to step outside their comfort zones. Slowly but surely, conversations sparked between families who had once viewed each other as adversaries. With each shared story, understanding blossomed like wildflowers pushing through cracks in hard soil. Together, Clara and Matoh bridged worlds once separated by misunderstanding and prejudice, proving that love has the power to heal wounds both deep and wide. In their union lay not just hope for themselves but a promise of harmony that could ripple through generations, an enduring testament to the strength found in love and cultural blending amidst life's harsh realities. As the months passed following Clara and Chief Matoh's marriage, the impact of their union began to resonate throughout the community, sparking dialogue and reflection on the contentious relationship between settlers and the Comanche tribe. What had once been a landscape characterized by division and hostility now blossomed with possibilities for peace as Clara and Matoh emerged as unexpected ambassadors of harmony. The couple organized gatherings aimed at fostering understanding between their peoples. Clara's warmth and familiarity with settler life blended seamlessly with Matoh's deep-rooted knowledge of Comanche traditions. Together, they created a safe space for open discussion, inviting individuals from both communities to share their experiences and grievances. The atmosphere was initially fraught with apprehension. Skepticism lingered in the air like a heavy fog. However, the couple's unwavering commitment to bridging gaps began to break down barriers. In these gatherings, stories unfolded, tales of loss, fear, and misunderstanding were shared alongside anecdotes of joy, hope, and resilience. Clara's own journey from enslavement to freedom resonated deeply with many settlers who found themselves drawn into her narrative of strength. Likewise, Matoh spoke passionately about the beauty of his culture and the importance of respecting all lives. With each passing story, participants slowly began to recognize their common humanity. As friendships bloomed amid this evolving landscape, peace talks gained momentum. Settlers from Clara's past who once viewed the Comanche with suspicion now sat side by side with tribal members at communal feasts. They shared meals infused with flavors from both cultures as laughter mingled with respectful conversation, a stark contrast to the distrust that had previously defined their interactions. Yet the undercurrents of prejudice still existed. A faction within both communities resisted these newfound connections, clinging tightly to old grudges and fears. Clara and Matoh faced resistance but met it head-on with grace and steadfastness, emphasizing that true change often encounters storms before it can find calm seas. Recognizing that personal relationships could influence larger societal issues was pivotal in shaping this new reality. Their love story encouraged individuals on both sides to approach one another without preconceived notions. It illustrated how deeply personal choices could ripple outward, affecting entire communities in profound ways. At a pivotal gathering in the town square where Clara and Matoh announced their commitment to fostering a lasting alliance between settlers and native peoples, their words echoed loudly against the backdrop of tradition versus progress. "We are not so different," Clara declared passionately. "Our hopes for happiness unite us more than our past grievances divide us." Matoh's deep voice resonated within every listener's heart as he added, "Let us build bridges instead of walls." The energy in the crowd shifted as nods of agreement emerged from both sides, small yet significant signs that acceptance was taking root. Through Clara and Matoh's dedication to unity and understanding, an undeniable transformation began to unfold on both sides. Their marriage became a catalyst for peace talks that illustrated how love could transcend fear and prejudice, showing that even amid hardship, humanity could thrive when embraced by compassion and cooperation. As dialogues flourished and connections deepened, a new chapter for both communities began to take shape, one where hope reigned over hatred and unity triumphed over division. As Clara and Chief Matoh stood hand in hand, looking out over the horizon that embraced both land and sky, they felt the weight of their remarkable journey together. Their paths had meandered through trials and tribulations where darkness once threatened to swallow them whole. Yet now, their lives intertwined under the banner of love, hope, and resilience, proof that both freedom and love have the power to rewrite one's fate. Clara often reflected on her journey from the oppressive oil fields to this moment of newfound joy. The years spent under Mr. Hawthorne's control had left deep scars on her soul, but it was through those very struggles that she discovered her inner strength. With Matoh by her side, she found a partner who not only understood her pain but also celebrated her spirit with unwavering respect. Together, they transformed their individual histories into a shared future filled with promise. Their union symbolized more than just a personal relationship, it represented the potential for healing between two cultures long marred by misunderstanding. Each day brought fresh opportunities to cultivate understanding as they welcomed others into their lives. From communal gatherings to open dialogues, Clara and Matoh became living examples of how love can transcend barriers created by fear and prejudice. The couple's commitment to promoting peace extended beyond their personal connection, it inspired countless others in their communities. Slowly but surely, hearts began to shift as people from both backgrounds learned to recognize the humanity in one another. The stories Clara shared about resilience echoed throughout the settlements, while Matoh's tales of tradition fostered appreciation for Comanche culture. This exchange not only enriched lives but also deepened bonds that were once thought unbridgeable. Yet the path had not always been smooth. They faced opposition from those unwilling to accept change, individuals clinging desperately to old grudges. But every challenge served only to strengthen Clara and Matoh's resolve. They knew that true transformation takes time. A steady march toward acceptance often requires navigating storms before reaching calm waters. With each passing day, they found ways to illuminate the potential for unity amid adversity. Whether through laughter shared over meals or respectful conversations during community events, Clara and Matoh showed that compassion could flourish even in the most unexpected circumstances. Their love story became a beacon of hope, a living testament that when people choose understanding over division, they can shape a brighter future. Ultimately, freedom for Clara was not merely an end goal, it marked the beginning of endless possibilities. As she and Matoh continued to cultivate peace between settlers and Comanche tribes, they celebrated their unique identities while recognizing the common threads that connected them all. As they looked toward the horizon together, where sunrises painted vivid colors across the sky, they felt a surge of optimism for what lay ahead. Their journey was ongoing, filled with challenges yet brimming with promise, a reminder that love could break chains and set spirits free. In embracing their diverse backgrounds and uniting for a common purpose, Clara and Matoh demonstrated that resilience in love would always triumph over despair, reshaping destinies against all odds.